I'm Edie Lush. I'm here in the Hub Culture Pavilion in Davos. Very pleased now to be joined by Vishakha Desai, Special Advisor at Columbia University, also the President Emerita of Asia Society. Thanks for coming. We're at the beginning of Obama's second term. What do you think that means for Asia? He's been called the Pacific president rather than the Atlantic president.
I was just in India, and after that, being at the inauguration yesterday, I think one of the things that people talk about with President Obama is because his administration really began to talk about the rebalancing to Asia or pivot to Asia by saying that the United States has always been a Pacific power, even though sometimes we forget that. I think that for the second term, it's pretty clear that with the winding down of war in Afghanistan and in Iraq, one of the things the president is talking about is now they can once again begin to look at a long-term strategic interest. With rise of China and China becoming a major global player, India rising in a slightly different capacity, the president recognizes that in fact the economic weight of the world is towards Asia, in addition to the United States. Therefore, America has to pay attention to what will happen in Asia. What is unique is that he is putting some emphasis on defense and what happens in the naval power in both the Pacific Ocean but also in the Indian Ocean. And the arc is, for the first time as he's defining it, is all the way from South Asia or India to East Asia, rather than making it as a two separate category. So I think you will see a certain degree of emphasis because of the economic prerogative and also the necessary changes that are going on. But the question is whether he would be able to be the Pacific president the way he has envisioned it, because of the fact that your big concerns, Iran, the Middle East, all of these issues are not going away. So the question one has to ask is that whether, no matter how much he wants to, whether his short-term necessity will be in the West rather than on the East. So it's something we have to really look at, whether short-term and long-term interests can come together.
We've also had a change of power in India. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, you know, in India yesterday, Rahul Gandhi, the son of Sonia Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi, the former Prime Minister, the late Rajiv Gandhi, was anointed as the second in command of the Congress Party. Now, in India, one of the things that I think is rather striking after having watched the inauguration in Washington is that here is a young president. Obama is barely 50 years old, and with a sense of kind of history and passion and bringing things together, whether it is Lincoln, whether it is Martin Luther King. In India, I feel like we have great leaders, Mahatma Gandhi, Nehru, but there is a kind of an inertia that actually is not able to put these people not just on a pedestal, but to make them living and breathing leaders of India. I think Rahul Gandhi, who is 42 years old, many people think of him as the future leader of India, and yet there are huge questions whether he's there simply because of the dynastic connections, if you will. One forgets that the name Gandhi is not Mahatma Gandhi. This is actually the name of Indira Gandhi's former husband who passed away. But the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty is a kind of this power. And one has to ask, for a flourishing democracy like India, why is it so necessary to always have a dynastic leader, even if that leader, some people would question whether he's able to really lead the country or not. Only the time will tell. But it's also possible that he, like his mother, will just rule the party and not become the prime minister. So we are going to wait and see. In India, the elections will be held in 2014 at the latest. It could be as early as in the fall of 2013. So we'll see how all of this plays out. So while in America, we're now ready for the second term, Obama knows he doesn't have to run again, he can get things done. In India, we have to wait and see as to what happens.
What do you think, in terms of looking at the election, the major issue is going to be for India?
I think that given that recently there was this big, very horrendous rape issue that's happened in Delhi, one of the things that the Congress Party is really looking at, so is BJP, the opposition party, is that up until now, all parties in India always look to the rural India as where their votes were, that they had to focus on people in the agrarian belt. For the first time, everybody's recognizing that urban middle class is no longer just going to put up with stuff, that they're going to have to pay attention to this. Social media is becoming very prominent in how things are happening in India. So how do you deal with that? I think is going to be an issue. But for India, the biggest issue is, can the economic growth actually come back into the level that creates jobs for people? Because the stalling of economy can really be the death knell for that economy. And at the same time, to be GDP junkies, as I call them, is not enough, because you do have to think about how you're going to create a holistic education environment that also is supportive of culture, history, humanities, things that are really not being paid attention to. So for me, the next government in India is going to have to think about urbanization as a key issue, economic growth, followed by and balanced by inclusive growth that is a social growth of the society. Would be a pretty amazing thing.
Pretty amazing thing to start. Thank you so much for stopping into the Hub Culture Pavilion here in Davos, and I'm Edie Lush.